I'm going to do a quick video today on changing the tires, either rotating the wheels or changing the set of wheels from summer to winter tires on the vehicle. So this is most of it's common sense. I'm just going to do a couple quick tips today, just to go over it. So I've done this a million times. I just kind of want to share what I've done and some best practices. So I've got two jacks, so I just set jack up one side. And I'm going to let this side down just so it's touching the ground, because that's going to be easier to loosen up the lug nuts. So then I just go through. I sometimes use a impact wrench to loosen it, but it just depends. So loosen those up. That'll be a lot easier when you jack it up off the ground. And then I just remove the rest of the lugs, these are actually bolts, which is kind of unusual. Typically cars have lugs and lug nuts, but these are actual bolts, which you've probably seen before. And I'm actually since these are kind of, corroding a little bit, I'm going to just paint those, maybe some gloss black, so they look a little bit better. Not that that's a big deal or anything. Now, it doesn't really matter how you take off the bolts as far as any pattern. It is important putting them back on to do it in a star pattern. And this goes pretty quick this way, so I usually don't necessarily need any power tools. And again, when you're putting on a new set, it depends on if they're rotational, so you need to make sure you look at to see if your tires are rotational or not. So this one says rotation, so it's that way, which means that you can only go rear to front, front to rear. You can't change sides, otherwise you have the wheel going the wrong direction. So since these are rotational, this one, if I was just rotating tires, this one would have to go up there, that one would have to go back here. But I'm not rotating, just putting on a new set. So do you want to remove your wheel? Next important thing you want to do is check for anything that's in the tread as far as screws, nails, or whatever. This is the best time to do that because you can get a good look at it, check it out. So many times I've removed wheels and found it and had to have them repaired. And the other thing you want to do is check your tread depth. And there's depending on what wheel you have, there's wear bars. I don't know if you can see it on here, but you can see it in the tread, that if it gets down to that level, then it's time to replace the tire. This is a snow tire that was put on pretty recently, so it's only got a few thousand miles on it, so it's got tons of tread on it. And after that, what you want to do is you want to mark it. This one actually still has the mark on it from last time I changed it. Which it says right front because that's where it came from last time, so I need to mark it and say right rear. So when I bag it and put it in the basement, which is usually a good idea, is put it in a controlled environment. It's just better for the rubber. I don't think you need to bag it. I have some leftover bags I got from the dealership, so I just reuse those, but not necessary to bag it in my opinion. But it's a good idea to put it in the basement, put it in a controlled environment, so it's not, because that's the changing temperatures, changing humidity, just is not good for anything, but especially rubber tires. It's also a great time to clean up your calipers, so you can get those cleaned up, and you can do that at this time. I'm not going to mark these right now, but I will leave it right here so I know what it came off of. I want to say a few words about these wheels that I got from, I did not get them from Tarmac, I got them from Discount Tire Direct. and that's a whole nother story. But one thing you need to be really careful of is, this goes for discount tire direct, and for Tire Rack. They will list a large number of wheels that they say will fit this vehicle, and they will not. I've tried a bunch of them, and this is one that definitely fits. It's a petrol wheel, and I'll get the details later because I don't have them here, unless it's right on here, which I don't think so. But it was one of the few wheels that I found that would work. P0A, yep, petrol P0A. So that's what, because of the back spacing, basically what happens is, not in the rear but in the front, it would rub on the caliper. So you have to have the right back spacing so that it would fit. And trust me, Tire Rack and Discount Tire Direct, they really have no clue what really works with this vehicle. So do your research. And when you're putting it back down, you gotta make sure you have the right lug nuts. I mean, I'm not, these are bolts again. And I've got the, so I bagged them, and I've got the right socket to be used. So you want to obviously use these and not the stock ones, because that they have different lead-ins or different taper. So this is not meant for your stock wheels, and your stock bolts are not meant for the aftermarket ones. And you got to also worry about make sure you have the correct length. So then it's just a matter of putting them again, putting it the right. So this one was the right front. You can see I have it marked right front, and so now it's going to go back because I marked it when I took it off. And now it goes back to the right rear. And again, now's a good time to, like I said, clean. I'm not going to do that right now, but just to kind of show you what you need to do. And it's, you know, just a matter of getting in position. I'm not going to do all the steps here, but I will note that it does have, I don't know if you can see it, but it does have this ring in here. It's a locating ring to make sure it sits on here correctly. So you do want to make sure you have that installed if it's required. So it's just a matter of mounting it. I'm not going to put it on, put your lugs in, and first thing is do that by hand. Do not put it in by using a wrench, impact, whatever. Get all of them started and more or less at least 3, 4, 5 threads. Put it in by hand. You do not want to cross thread these. And then when you're tightening them, you want to do it in a star pattern. So for example, you want to start with this one, then here, then here, then here. Just slowly tighten them. And again, I don't like to use an impact on this. I like to use it by hand, just because it's you're not going to, very unlikely that you're going to cross thread or cause any problems. But again, when I do take them off, I don't have a problem taking them off by an impact or either electrical or pneumatic impact wrench.